Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's video podcast of The Voice of John. And today I am humbled, honored, privileged to have a very special guest with me, Father Frank Pavone, one of the most prominent pro-life leaders in the world. National Director of Priests for Life, National Pastoral Director of the Silent No More campaign, and Rachel's Vineyard. Father Pavone, I'm so grateful for your support of the Voice of John, the mission of one little boy who was a victim of abortion and one of the first voices to speak out on infanticide. Father Pavone, you have dedicated your life to the unborn child, to the sanctity of all human life. As an author, a priest, a speaker, you are committed to changing laws and, importantly, changing hearts. So let's begin this interview by, first of all, I want people to recognize the history of our pro-life movement, that of the abortion movement, really. And I think it's important for people to realize that the original intent of abortion was not a movement for women's rights, but actually built on the concepts of genocide and racism, hatred, extermination of the African American population. So Margaret Sanger, founder of the Negro Project and Planned Parenthood, was certainly an advocate of genocide. So Father, will you speak to our listeners to the history of the abortion movement and what brought us to this tragic time in our history?
Yes. Well, it's great to be with you, and thanks for what you
Thank
do
you.
with the Voice of John. I remember it was a long time ago that we first got introduced to one another, and it's great joy for me to be of whatever support I can. So yes, the history of the abortion movement is very dark and twisted, and even Planned Parenthood recently acknowledged the racist roots that you just mentioned of Margaret Sanger, and her writings speak for themselves. You know, it's not even something that we have to read into it or draw out by implication. She said that we have to get rid of these unwanted types of people, and she started on that path with birth control. She didn't even start with the idea of abortion. And, you know, in the early years, Planned Parenthood made that distinction, and they said, well, you know, we can prevent births, we can prevent someone from becoming pregnant, but abortion destroys a child after it's already been conceived. So they made that distinction. But then not too many years later, and we saw here the intervention of people like Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who later became pro-life. I knew him, and others working with him, where they brought abortion more front and center, and Planned Parenthood got behind it. Abortion industry launched. Now, time went on, and it became, you know, politically incorrect to speak out so explicitly about, oh, we want to eliminate the Negro population.
Right.
The abortion industry spoke less about that. As psychiatrists say, believe behavior. You know, somebody tells you, oh, I'm not thirsty, and meanwhile they can't get their face out of the water fountain, you know, and they're gulping down water. They're thirsty. So you believe behavior rather than words. And you look at the behavior of the abortion industry, and they set up their facilities, by and large, in or near minority communities. Yeah. So it's about the Black population, and the Hispanic population is targeted too. You see them behaving that way right to this very day in a society that is, you know, so consumed about racism, and they're throwing the word around. Oh, it's terrible to be racist, but the racist, institutionally biased entity in our country is in fact Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry, and that is that's history, and that's also what we're seeing to this very day.
Exactly. So now, Father Pavone, Roe has been overturned.
Praise God.
Praise God, and we do. The fate of the child in the womb falls to the citizens of each state.
Yes.
We often hear that we need to leave politics out of it. Uh, can you talk to us about the moral obligation that we have to vote and to educate ourselves about the issue of abortion before we
Yeah.
vote?
We can say now, because of the reversal of Roe v. Wade, that we have even more of a moral obligation than we did before to vote in such a way that we're going to preserve life. Why do I say that? Because the courts, and with Casey, we're standing in the way of the people and their elected representatives protecting the unborn. The people and their elected representatives have wanted to protect the unborn for a long time, much more than they've been protected in America. And they were passing all kinds of laws, both in Congress and also in the states. But the courts kept blocking those laws out of this invented constitutional right to abortion. However, the court has corrected itself and said, well, there is no constitutional right to abortion. Therefore, if the people and their elected representatives want to protect the unborn, even from conception, we are not going to stand in the way. So if the court is saying, which it is, well, then it's even more incumbent on us than before to the right laws that are going to protect these babies, because now we have a big roadblock that's been taken out of the way. And if we're going to pass the right laws, we have to elect the right lawmakers. We vote for candidates who talk to us about not so much about their beliefs. I really don't care about their beliefs. I want to know what they're willing to do to protect the unborn. We elect those that are willing to take the actions necessary to protect these children, and that's how we get it done.
Okay, thank you. So, Father, as National Director of the Silent No More campaign, and I saw you earlier this month stand with those women who
Yes.
dress their wounds. You've also been pastoral, the priest for Rachel's Vineyard retreat.
Right.
So you know so well the wound of abortion and what it does to women. So being pro-life is pro-woman, but
Very much.
please talk to this listening audience, to our viewers, about the wounds of abortion for women, men, and families.
And these are not simply anecdotal stories. We have a lot of research that's been done. Go all the way back to, the time of President Ronald Reagan. His Surgeon General C. Everett Koop was asked by the president, can you give me some research on the impact of abortion on women's health? And the Surgeon General said to him, yes, Mr. President, we know that it does impact women's health in an adverse way. But then he told him, we've got to do more studies on this. That was the 1980s. Since then, there have been a lot of studies. There are entire bibliographies this thick of just listing the studies. And there's a book called Complications. It's put out by the De Weber Institute. People will look that book up. It's gone through a couple of revisions. And it has very, very reputable, detailed studies. Abortion impacts individuals physically and psychologically, relationally, and also intergenerationally. The impact is devastating of abortion. So whether it's a simple thing to understand like infection, I mean, you're putting steel instruments to a very sensitive part of the human body, and infection can result, perforation of the uterus. These are very sharp instruments going into the uterus and taking out piece by piece a developing baby. And if you're chopping up that baby, you can end up chopping up the uterus as well. I mean, these are not hard concepts to understand. And so there are physical complications, many, many more besides. And then, of course, the psychological complications. What does it do to a person to realize that they killed their own baby? And you say, oh, well, they already know that they're doing that. No, not necessarily. They've been so lied to. I know it's not really a baby yet. And if you ask them before they have their abortion, does your baby have a beating heart? Does your baby have arms and legs? Can your baby feel pain? I mean, those are the kind of questions that mother wants to know before she goes and undergoes that abortion. And so many of them think they know because the abortion industry told them, well, you don't have, this is not a baby yet. And then later they find out that it was. That's a tremendous amount of grief. It destroys their confidence in themselves, their self-esteem, their ability to make decisions, their ability to have relationships, their ability to have intimate relationships. Later on, they want to go on and get married, and they find out that the past abortion is interfering with their ability to live a happy marriage. It can interfere with bonding relationships with future children. If the abortion hasn't already physically destroyed their fertility altogether, and on it goes. All these terrible, terrible consequences. So, like you said, I am pastoral director both for Silent No More and for Rachel's Vineyard, and are ministries that serve the people that have had abortions, help them find healing, and then for those that are called to do so, help them speak out and share their testimonies. As we recently did, we were in Harrisburg, and the Pennsylvania March for Life took place, as you know, a few weeks ago, and it was a wonderful gathering. And these women who have had abortions spoke.
Father, when we talk about the violence in our world, in war, in school shootings, drive-by shootings, bullying, child abuse, and I know how much love you had for Mother Teresa of Calcutta, Saint Mother Teresa. Um, she talked about that violence is what began in the womb in our country. And so could you just reflect, because I think so many viewers just relate to Mother Teresa's messages and yours as well. So just blend them for us and give us.
Yes, I knew her personally. In fact, I had a phone number that I would call. She would answer it directly herself, and so I had great conversations with her, and I visited with her over there in Calcutta, and we talked a lot about Priests for Life, about abortion, the pro-life movement, and about this point that you just mentioned, which she brought up in her public speeches, including in Washington when she spoke at the prayer breakfast in 1994, including in her Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech. She said, if we tell a mother she can kill her own child, which is what we do when we legalize abortion, she said, how can we tell other people not to kill each other? It doesn't make any sense. You're giving a mother permission to kill her child, and then you're standing up and saying, "Oh, we can't kill people. We can't kill people." There was a story of a young man who committed violence in the streets, and he was taken before a judge. And when the judge challenged this young man as to how he could be so violent, you know what he said to him? The boy spoke back to the judge and said, "The womb, we kill him in the streets. Difference." And it's like, wow, young people really learn well. They learn certain things well. And one of the things, unfortunately, that they learn well is the valuing of human life. This impacts them personally, too, because one of the reasons they feel so free to engage in acts of violence, which are not only destroying their victims, destroying themselves, it's risk-taking behavior for themselves, is they have learned the message that their lives aren't valuable. Because they're quite aware, these younger people, that they were not protected when they were in the womb. So we're doing a tremendous disservice to society by allowing this violence. You allow a little bit of violence, you make it easier to do all kinds of other violence as well. Following that train of thought, Mother Teresa actually said, of abortion, your war. The fruit of abortion. It's just killing on a massive scale that governments justify. They keep making excuses as to why it's okay to allow it. When we stop abortion, we are saving the lives not just of the unborn. We're saving everybody. Unless we're all protected, none of us is really safe.
Right. Peace begins in the womb.
Yes.
Father, the targeting of pregnancy resource centers, the arrest of Mark Houck recently, arrested in his home here in Pennsylvania, it seems like that the pro-life movement, our pregnancy resource centers, pregnancy leadership, were being bullied into
Hmm.
abandoning the child in the womb. The Department of Justice, political leaders such as our Vice President, Kamala Harris,
Right.
Elizabeth Warren, they're calling for the closure of pregnancy resource centers. And that's where women are really given the choice, the life-giving choice, not to kill your child, but the support, the hope, the faith, the empowerment that they can do this.
We shouldn't be surprised, of course. Roe v. Wade was reversed. We knew the other side would be enraged. And there's two things going on at once. There's the rage that the other side has against this Supreme Court decision. And then it's just the fact that the government on the federal level is controlled by a pro-abortion party. The Democrat Party is very pro-abortion. So we would have expected a lot of this negative treatment anyway, even if Roe had not been reversed. But when you add that on top of what was already a bad situation, then you see the kind of things that you're describing. As far as the attacks on the pregnancy centers go, they're going right to the crux of the battle. In other words, the pregnancy centers, they're right on the front lines of this battle because they're literally snatching moms and babies away from the destructive claws of the abortion industry. And every time they save a life, the abortion industry looks at it as, it's not like, oh, well, let's celebrate the choice of the mother who life. No, let's be angry that money and business were taken away from us, just in terms of it's a business loss. No value to human life itself, and no care for that mother either, because they're ignoring. We already mentioned about how devastating it's going to be for her. The attacks on the pregnancy centers show that those centers really are on the front lines of this battle and need to be confident in the ultimate support that people will give and do give to this life-saving work, and the ability of the people to see through these political maneuvers. Elizabeth Warren starts talking about, oh, we have to investigate these pregnancy centers because, they're fake medical clinics and they're lying to women. It's like, wait a minute. That's exactly what the abortion clinics are doing. I know a person who I helped her come out of the abortion industry. She ran 6 abortion facilities, legal clinics in the South, and she would present herself to the women coming there as the doctor. Never spent one day in medical school. Talk about lying to these women. The abortion industry lies to them all the time, just like the things we were saying before. Oh, is it a baby? Does the baby have a heartbeat? Hands and legs, and does the baby feel pain? They lie to them all the time about these things, trying to just pick up the slack and tell these moms and dads the things that the abortion industry never tells them. And they want to talk to the pregnancy clinics as if they're liars. They have it completely upside down and inside out, completely wrong. The abortion facilities need to be investigated. There was a report issued by our friends at Americans United for Life called Unsafe, and people could look it up, easy to find online. Unsafe by AUL documents hundreds and hundreds of health and safety violations taking place in legal abortion clinics. Now, I helped put together a study that came out prior to that. This was all the way back in the 1990s through our friends at Life Dynamics. Same thing. We uncovered one after another of these incidents of practice, fraud, deception, dangerous practices. I mean, we're talking about things like high school students administering anesthesia, untrained staff, unqualified staff, outdated medical equipment, expired medications, lack of concern for patient confidentiality, distorting of medical records, financial fraud, and on the list goes. These are not things that are figments of our imagination. They've already been documented. Want to go after the pregnancy centers? It's outrageous what a complete reversal this is of what should really be getting done.
Exactly. Well, Father Pavone, I thank you so much for your time and for your energy and commitment. And these are the things that we all need to be aware of. And we're going into an election.
Yes.
Many states. Here in
Yes.
Pennsylvania, I can say we have two important elections, which is the governor's race. We
Yep.
have Josh Shapiro, who's running, who wants our taxpayer money to fund abortion, who believes in dismemberment of the child and abortion to the day of birth.
Right.
He's running against Doug Mastriano. Doug Mastriano he will not allow our taxpayer dollars to fund abortion. He will stand for the child in the womb and the mother. He does not believe in abortion. He's solid on that. So we have to look at these elections. And I know the Voice of John has a very broad audience and we reach out to so many different states, but this is the kind of comparative, the way you need to look at it. We have running our Senate, Dr. Oz, who's solid pro-life, will not allow taxpayer dollars of abortion. He opposes abortion, and he is running against John Fetterman. And John Fetterman, as we know, will support taxpayer funding. My money to pay for abortion, that's just like, oh, that makes me so horribly sick. He does believe in abortion. He will not protect the children from dismemberment. So, Father Pavone, in leaving this audience, and we thank you so much, please convince us that we have an obligation. We're on the cusp of history. We have changed Roe, and each state, every state, I'm telling you, compare it. Father Pavone, motivate us to get to
here's what the other side wants to do. They're saying Roe has been reversed, so get to the polls so we could elect pro-abortion candidates so that we can pass. And the Democrats have already voted on a measure they introduced in Congress, and they'll introduce it again in the next Congress, to make abortion throughout birth legal throughout the nation. So they want to get rid of these state laws and the restrictions and the regulations, and they passed it in the House twice, but it didn't get past the Senate because there were enough pro-life Republicans in the Senate to stop that extreme measure. Now, so here's what I want to say, especially about Pennsylvania. I've been with Dr. Oz. You know, he had a great pro-life ad. It's still up there, I'm sure. A great pro-life ad on his campaign site talking about how, you know, he as a doctor, you know, he's operated on these little tiny children. And he says, that's a life, and that's a life from conception, and that life needs to be protected. It was a beautiful message. And then just when I was at the Pennsylvania March for Life the other day, I had a great conversation with Doug Mastriano. He was right there amidst those faithful Pennsylvania citizens who were marching and standing for life. And there he was. And he was like, people were coming up to him and he was like right at home, right in the midst of that pro-life movement. I was so happy to be able to converse with him. These are great men. And here's the importance, it's not just for Pennsylvania, but I want voters of Pennsylvania to realize the fate of the nation is in your hands because the Senate is divided right straight down the middle. And Pennsylvania is one of those Senate races that is also seems to be divided right down the middle right now. And we need every single voter to get out there and vote pro-life because it's not only where Pennsylvania is going to go, the whole country, with the balance of power in the Senate shift. It's going to shift one way or the other in this election, pro-life or pro-abortion. That's going to mean the difference for what happens in every state. So in a sense, Pennsylvania is leading the way. And my goodness, there are people very motivated on the other side saying, yeah, we got to vote for abortion, vote for abortion. And it's like, that's so, yeah, not only immoral, it's really un-American because we're closing off the welcome and the compassion that we're supposed to have for the youngest, smallest human lives, the ones that Dr. Oz talked about holding in his hand. We got to be a people of compassion. And we, the pro-life community, are the people of compassion. It's the Democrats who are the extremists. Just ask. I want you to challenge, or everyone listening, when you have a Democrat candidates asking for your vote, you challenge them. Tell me one abortion that you would prohibit, one unborn baby that you would want to protect by law. The sad thing is they can't answer that. They don't want to protect any of them. We have a more reasonable position. We have the more compassionate position. Make that known to your fellow voters and make sure you get your vote out there in this very important election.
Thank you so much, Father Frank Pavone. You've been my hero. You've been in my parents' living room for like decades.
Yes.
I always said you're like a brother. So I am so grateful for you. So, listeners out there, we are not single issue voters. We are voting on the single most important. Look at this little boy behind me. It's an image Jen Whitner drew painted of John and the unborn child in the womb. Imagine him being dismembered, decapitated. What would Jesus command of you when you get to the polls? Father Frank Pavone, thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. God bless.
God bless.